Beneath the flake of orange brown, a whisper sleeps in steel's old frown. The time has worn its bitter crust, a cancer made of air and dust. But here I come with hissing breath, a storm of grit, a dance of death. The nozzle hums a sacred song of things made right, of right from wrong. Each grain of sand a pointed truth, scours lies from rusted youth. Layer by layer, shame gives way, old scars flake off and light's new day. The metal groans, it does not break, just flexes with the cleansing quake. Its gleam has never truly gone, just buried deep like right and wrong. And so it is with hearts and men, the grit must fly again, again. Strip the scale with steady hand, reveal the soul like polished brand. Not violence, but a fierce grace that scours sorrow, leaves no trace. For rust will come and shame will stay until we blast the guilt away. Then what remains, though worn and old, is steel once more, pure bright and bold. Oh, I've got 5 of these old benches, these antique garden benches that I'm going to be redoing. 2 for my wife and 3 for my mother. We're going to start off by using this open air sandblaster to clean off all the grit and grime and rust that's been built up over the years. And I know that it's ultimately satisfying to watch the dirt be blasted away. But this was really hard on my cameras being out in this, so you'll just have to forgive me. You're only going to get a few shots of the satisfaction that is sandblasting wrought iron benches. So, like I said, we're using this Harbor Freight sandblasting canister and just doing this outside. It was very messy, but it worked really well. But as you can see, there's black dust just going everywhere. So, my neighbors probably weren't too pleased with me, but it was only a couple days of this, then it all blew away in the Wyoming wind. So then we added some primer. This is basically some Rust-Oleum rust-stopping primer that we put down. If I had to do it again, I would use a color besides black because it made the painting later really difficult to see if we had good coverage or not. Before doing the priming, I took a sanding disc on my angle grinder and made sure that any place that hands were going to touch was sanded smooth. So I used an HVLP air gun to paint this end with. The paint was a little thicker than I should have used for this gun, so I had to water it down a little. But in the end, it put a nice even coat on there and gave it the really great look that I was going for. Fairly glossy black coating. Then it was on to cleaning up the wood for the slats. This is some hard maple that I'm jointing down to start making the slats from. And it's going to be made from maple and cherry. Well, that sucks. All right.
A few moments later.
Well, now that that is fixed, it's back to jointing these pieces of wood. I used 2-inch thick, also known as 1/4 pieces, so that I could cut them once to make slats, but I needed to get this edge straight. Or how I'm cutting these out of that board. I made sure that they were little less than 3/4 of an inch thick, so when I sanded them all down, they would be 5/8. But I had to make 60 of these, 5 benches with 12 slats each. Turns out to be quite a bit of wood to mill up and sand.
The sanding never ends. It goes on and on, my friend. I started sanding yesterday. Now I'm sanding my life away.
The sanding never ends. It goes on and on, my friend. I started sanding yesterday. Now I'm sanding my life away.
The sanding never ends. It goes on and on, my friend. I started sanding yesterday. Now I'm sanding my life away.
The sanding never ends. It goes on and on, my friend. I started sanding yesterday. Now I'm sanding my life away.
The sanding never ends. It goes on and on, my friend. I started sanding yesterday. Now I'm sanding my life away.
So I started off by using a round over on 2 sides, which will end up being the top of each slat, so that they're nice and rounded for your butt. The bottom I ended up using a bevel, just put a small bevel on there to give the stresses someplace to go and not let the wood split as you sit on it, so it wouldn't splinter out. But this took quite a bit of time as well. 60 slats times 4 sides is 240 passes across there. So here we go. I didn't do another song for this. I figured one song per video is probably enough to share the TDM. But going fast like this makes it seem like it was quick. And now it's time to set the benches up and start getting the slats drilled. These benches are cast iron and they're antique, and so the holes aren't evenly spaced, either left or right or up and down. So to get the slats evenly spaced, it's a process of putting each slat in, marking the holes, drilling the holes, mounting it, and then putting the next slat in, and doing that all the way up. Now, you only have to do that 12 times, but it's not a fast process, because you want the slats to be even when you're done, and since the holes are not even, you can't just put it in the center of each slat every time. It's a matter of making sure the holes are where you want them each and every go round. So after punching the hole, I use a brad point drill bit to drill through, and it stops before the drill bit goes all the way through. That little tiny point on the drill goes through the back side, marking the underside where the hole's at. That means I could come in from this side and just line up that brad point with the hole and cut from both directions, and that keeps from having tear out and blow out from the drill bit. It's a little bit of an extra step, but it is worth it in the end. So here I'm using 1.5-inch carriage bolts with washers and nylon lock nuts. I figured that old rusty hardware was no good. The thing about carriage bolts is you really want to kind of set them. So I put them in my vise hanging loose and use a hammer to set them in. What that does is it marks off the square corners of the carriage bolt so that it'll grab when you start drilling, and you don't have to try and hold it while it's in place. You can just set the carriage bolt in the little square demarcations, and it'll hold itself while you use a drill to run the nylock on. So we do this for every slat all the way up, and when I get up on the back here, you'll see that I am putting in maple and spacing them out with the cherry. Now it's time for the teak oil. This is better than varnish. It is a good outdoor protectant, and the varnish will generally flake off over time, whereas teak oil you can just reapply. You'll notice how the ends are stained. That's because I was dipping the ends, so the end grain and the bolt hole got soaked in teak oil. And then it was time to take it outside so I could do the rest of the oiling. That teak oil really makes that cherry wood pop. It's so gorgeous. Boy, these things turned out gorgeous. And I was really happy that I'd already done one bench. So I had a place to sit, drink a beer while I watched the second one dry. Now, only 3 more to go. Have a good day, y'all. Have a good day.